Now, on BBC One, the BBC News with Rita Chakrabarti.
Today, emotional scenes at the funeral of two British-Israeli sisters shot dead in an attack on Friday in the occupied West Bank. The grief of a family mourning its loss. Their father said his girls were beautiful, smart and popular. Maya and Rina D were 20 and 15. They moved with their family from London to a West Bank settlement 9 years ago. The girls' murder is part of a worsening security situation in Israel. We'll be live with our correspondent there. Also on the programme, Pope Francis leads the Easter Mass at St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, despite recently spending time in hospital. 1 in every 7 hospital bed in England has been taken up by someone well enough to go home. We hear from one of those patients.
I'm stuck here and just fighting to get home and to keep going. And I don't know how much fight I have left in me.
And Tiger Woods withdraws from the Masters with an injury, just hours before the resumption of the third round at Augusta. Good afternoon. The funeral of two British-Israeli sisters shot dead in the occupied West Bank on Friday has taken place. Maya and Rina D, who were 20 and 15, were killed when their car was attacked in the north of the Jordan Valley. Their mother is in a critical condition. The family moved from London 9 years ago to live in the West Bank. The attack on them happened on the same day as a group of tourists were rammed by a car in Tel Aviv, amid heightened tensions between Israelis and Palestinians. Here's our Middle East correspondent, Lucy Williamson.
As Maya and Rina were brought in, the wailing of Rina's teenage school friends filled the prayer hall. Their father, a rabbi, bent low over their bodies, the pain on his face hidden for a moment in a last embrace with his daughters.
Today the Jewish people have proven that we are one. We are united, Am Echad. But a simple, quiet family in Efrat is devastating. The whole country hurts.
Maya was 20 years old when she died. Rina was 15. Their mother, still unconscious in hospital, doesn't even know yet that they're dead. They were travelling from their West Bank settlement to the Sea of Galilee for a family holiday this week when their Israeli car came under fire. Among the mourners today, Israel's National Security Minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir, a hard-right leader who was once a member of a banned extremist group. Each unique loss here pulls up deep, unresolved questions about land, security and rights. Funerals are the fingerprints of this conflict. Contested land mapped by the graves of Israelis and Palestinians. Tensions have risen sharply here this week as Jewish, Muslim and Christian religious festivals coincide. Jerusalem's Old City was packed today, with Easter congregations and Jews attending a blessing at the Western Wall. Some Jewish worshippers also walked past the Al-Aqsa Mosque on a Passover visit to the site, known to Jews as Temple Mount. Moments like this are watched carefully by security forces, activists and militant groups. The behaviour of Israeli police here this week triggered anger in the region. Today, the compound has, so far, remained peaceful, even if, beyond it, tensions remain high. Lucy Williamson, BBC News, Jerusalem.
Let's join our Middle East correspondent, Yolande Knell, who's in Jerusalem for us. And Yolande, as Lucy was saying there's been great concern about rising tensions during the overlapping religious holidays taking place. What is the latest?
Well, I mean, there had really been worries of further violent scenes at Al-Aqsa Mosque after Israeli police raided the prayer hall there last week. And then what we saw overnight was that Palestinian Muslims marking Ramadan had barricaded themselves in the mosque once again. But this time, instead of Israeli police forcing them out, what we saw is that the heavily armed officers lined up to separate the worshippers from hundreds of Jewish visitors who they escorted around the site, which they call Temple Mount, and then a mass blessing at for Passover at the Western Wall, which lies just below, and also an Easter Sunday service at the Holy Sepulchre Church, which is nearby, took place without incident. I mean, we have seen once again in recent days how the Al-Aqsa Mosque, events that happen there can be such a flashpoint for violence in the region. There was another apparent reminder of that overnight, with rockets fired from Syria into Israeli-controlled territory. Israel's military was quick to retaliate with airstrikes, with artillery fire, although for now it's returned to quiet on that front.
OK, Yolande, many thanks. Pope Francis has led the Easter Sunday Mass at St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican. He expressed his deep concern about the escalating tensions between Israelis and Palestinians and called for an end to the war in Ukraine. Here, the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, also used his Easter sermon to reflect on conflicts around the world. From Vatican City, our religion editor Aleem Makboul reports.
From the early hours, they streamed into St. Peter's Square for Easter Mass. People had come from all over the world, but just days ago there had been doubts about whether the Pope would be well enough to take part in events at all. Some here told of their relief when he appeared, but there was still nervousness as to how strong he really was after his bout of bronchitis. Once the service got underway, Pope Francis seemed untroubled. But it was once the Mass was over that he appeared most relaxed. Though for the first time he'd missed one event on Good Friday, he'd now successfully negotiated the rest of the toughest week in his calendar. Well, there have been moments in the week during services when the Pope has seemed a little breathless, a little weak even. But every time he's been in the crowds and interacted with people, he's really appeared to be much more energized.
He looked in really good health. You know, the crowd, I'm sure, were encouraging him along, but he looked very healthy, you know, happy, and doing his job very well. But it was great to see him in fine spirits.
I was very worried when he was in hospital, and I kept informed because he's so special. He wanted to fulfill all his commitments for this Holy Week, and to see him here, you realise how strong he is.
At Canterbury Cathedral, in his sermon, Archbishop Justin Welby said Easter was a reminder that light triumphs over darkness, even in seemingly intractable conflict.
We do not lose heart, but we pray and we work for Ukraine and Russia, for Israel and Palestine, with the recent tragedies especially, and for the other so often forgotten struggles of our world.
Pope Francis struck similar themes in his final public duty this Holy Week in his appearance on the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica. But during his traditional blessing, he talked of his deep concern over events in the Middle East, praying for peace in the holy city of Jerusalem and beyond. Aleem Makboul, BBC News in Vatican City.
King Charles has attended his first Easter Sunday service as monarch. He was alongside the Queen Consort and other senior members of the royal family at Windsor Castle. The event is a staple of the royal calendar and took place in St George's Chapel, which is also the late Queen's final resting place. The Health Secretary Steve Barclay says the union representing junior doctors is taking a militant stance and calls its demand for a pay rise of 35% unrealistic. Junior doctors working in England are due to strike again for 4 days from Tuesday. Writing in the Sunday Telegraph, Mr Barclay said the action was timed to cause maximum disruption and carries a considerable risk to patient safety. This winter, 1 hospital bed in every 7 in England was taken up by someone well enough to go home, according to BBC Analysis. One of those enduring a long and bleak wait is Charlotte Mills Murray. Her condition means she may only have months to live, but she remains in hospital 5 months after being cleared to go home. Our health reporter Jim Reid has been speaking to her.
It's just exhausting when things constantly happen like this and it's constantly going wrong.
Charlotte has Ehlers-Danlos, a condition that weakens her connective tissue. She may only have months to live.
So it's 4 a.m. All I want to do is be at home now.
Charlotte, who works as a sign language interpreter, was admitted to hospital with a series of complex infections. In November, she was told she could go home, with care paid for by the NHS. Yet another 5 months on, she's still stuck in hospital.
It's so wrong that we're in this situation, There's been a lot of tears, a lot of hard decisions. And when they say, oh, you're ready to go home, you get excited, you think everything's there at home, back to normal life, and then everything just changes again.
Charlotte's case here in Leeds is very complex and not representative of everyone who needs care. It does, though, illustrate a wider problem. This past winter, a record 1 in 7 hospital beds across England has been taken up by someone well enough to go home. The government has said it's making another £1.6 billion available to speed up hospital discharge in England. Often the hold-up is because the right care in the home just isn't available.
Mum, I don't know what I would do without you.
In Leeds, Charlotte's family say there have been repeated delays with her home care, with finding staff, with training, with equipment.
So much time's been wasted. We've gone round in circles because everybody's changed what they said they would do, and the time wasting is Charlotte's life. We can't get that back.
What would it mean to get your daughter back home?
The world. Yeah, it will. To see her home, in her bed.
Charlotte's Care Board and hospital have said they are sorry for the long delay. They say the vast majority of patients return home quickly, but some complex cases take longer. Charlotte's now spent nearly a year in this hospital bed, missing her birthday at home and time with her family.
You just think, if I can get home, it'll be better. I just need to get home and it'll be fine. And all I want is people to make that happen for me.
Jim Reid, BBC News.
Time for all the sport now. Here's Ollie Foster at the BBC Sports Centre. Ollie.
Thank you, Rita. After yesterday's heavy rain, they've been playing catch-up at the Masters. The final round has just got underway with the American Brooks Koepka 2 shots clear at the top of the leaderboard. Our sports correspondent Andy Swiss is at Augusta.
You're not allowed to run at Augusta, so a speed walk race for the best seats, as after Saturday's rain, the fans poured in. But they wouldn't be seeing Tiger Woods. This was him yesterday, struggling with injury, and he withdrew before play began. With the third round still to be completed, America's Brooks Koepka began with a 4-shot lead. But a wayward start, and it was soon whittled away, as Spain's Jon Rahm narrowed the gap.
And the lead is 1.
Behind them, Norway's Victor Hovland was on a charge, 5 birdies in a row, as he surged up the leaderboard. Justin Rose heads the British Challenge, a long way back though. He could do with a few more of these.
Oh, go on.
Despite his early wobble, it's Koepka that still leads the way, but more Masters drama is guaranteed.
So yes, the players have just completed their third rounds and Brooks Koepka heads the field. He's 2 clear of Jon Rahm and 3 clear of Victor Hovland. Britain's Justin Rose is 8 shots back. They're about to start their final round, and with the weather set fair, it should be some finish, Ollie.
Thank you, Andy. Andy Swiss live from Augusta there. There are 2 matches in the Premier League today. Leaders Arsenal currently 2-1 up at Liverpool in the second half. Leeds United are still 2 points above the relegation zone after losing 5-1 at home to Crystal Palace. Joe Wilson was watching that one.
At 75, Roy Hodgson's watched every rise and fall. Here's Crystal Palace fear relegation, so do Leeds. Now, Patrick Bamford's header was perfect and actually Leeds dominated until this. Free kick, Mark Gahey reacted and Palace were level just before half-time. Now this was a match transformed. Palace were aggressive, ambitious. Here comes a cross. Who fancies the header?
Jordan Ayew has turned it around here for Crystal Palace.
Not long ago, before they changed managers in fact, Palace barely managed to shoot. Here's their third goal. Eberchieze, Leeds defenders folded to the bewilderment of their manager. Leeds piled forwards, they were outnumbered at the back. Odsonne-Edouard's finish, ground silenced. Seriously, humbled at home by relegation rivals. Ayew was onside. Go on then, 5-1. 5-1. And still time for one of his finest hours. Joe Wilson, BBC News.
Dundee United's manager Jim Goodwin says they're up for the battle ahead after securing their first win in 12 in the Scottish Premiership. Jamie McGrath's 90th minute penalty saw them beat Hibernian 2-1. They're still bottom of the table, but just 2 points behind Ross County. Saracens have lost their Rugby Union Champions Cup quarter-final, well beaten by the holders La Rochelle. 24-10 was the final score. Tawera Kerr-Barlow went over twice for the French side. They'll now face Exeter in the semi-finals later this month. As ever, there is a lot more on the BBC Sport website. You can keep across the final round of the Masters and the remainder of that Liverpool-Arsenal match. Still 2-1 to Arsenal. That's all the sport, Rita.
Thank you, Ollie. That's it for now. We are back with the late news at 10 o'clock. Now on BBC One, it's time for the news where you are. Bye-bye.